I'll start with a little story. At lunchtime, I was sitting eating this, I don't know if you had them, but these jumbo hamburger. Anyone seen a burger that big before? It's massive.
You wanted to show the film at the beginning, remember?
Yeah. Sorry. The story's just got a lot shorter. So I was eating my jumbo burger, and behind me, two people who work in my team were standing there eating a burger as well, chatting amongst themselves. And they clearly didn't realise I was standing there. And one said to the other, yeah, and at the end, Romek's doing a session with, and I was waiting for him to say, 4 gurus, yeah? 4 of the old, the top people in the industry. And what they said was, the 4 old blokes. And it should have been 5, clearly, because I was clearly in that group. We're going to wrap up. We're going to do a session right now. We're going to start with a film. We're going to do about 20 minutes, because it's us or beer. And I know where I'd rather be, so I'm not going to hold you any longer. And we're just going to sit down and have a chat and share some of the wealth of information. There is, I think, 62 years of shared service outsourcing experience with 5 people, us 5 here. And I think there's a lot of very, very clever things that are going to come out. So we're going to be short and sweet and to the point, and we're going to start with a video.
The city of Krakow in Poland is the location for one of PricewaterhouseCoopers' most recently established BPO Centers of Excellence. Krakow is a beautiful place, but other factors led to the selection of this location.
We selected Krakow as the location of our Centre of Excellence because it had access to a highly qualified multilingual labour pool at a competitive cost. Similarly, infrastructure is competitively priced relative to other parts of the region, and it has state-of-the-art technology, state-of-the-art telecoms.
I think one of the major attractions of Krakow as a location for a business such as ours is the availability of labour pool. Krakow has 10 universities, has a student population in excess of 100,000 people. The Polish education system is of a very high standard. Most of our employees speak 2, 3, if not 4 languages.
Although the basic infrastructure is good, the availability of quality office space is a problem.
When we looked for our own premises in Krakow, we gave a lot of thought to the quality of the working environment. We invested some considerable amount of funds to make the office look good. We've invested in good IT links, good computer facilities, good desk space, seating, colour, decor, everything to create a positive working environment. And it's something we are quite proud of.
As you see, all the area that we are working right now, it's really beautiful. I can say it's really like a perfect office, and it's a lot of space around, so we feel really bit comfortable, I can say, and it's really helping us, of course, working for such a nice company that's not only thinking about the work that we are dealing with, but they are taking care about us.
Clients, when they see this place, are very, very pleasantly surprised because they come in here with all these expectations about Central and Eastern Europe and Krakow and things like that, and they walk into a modern, state-of-the-art office with professionals buzzing around, and there's an atmosphere here. So I always encourage people to come and see what we've done because they walk away changed.
And now you know why we call him Young John, yeah? I'm going to kick in straight in. Nicholas, you left Krakow 3 years ago, and you had been running a very, very successful centre, Philip Morris International. You've been gone for 3 years. It gives you that perspective, a different one from us, because we're kind of still in the industry, we haven't really left. So can you tell us a little bit about, looking back now, your experience of living in a different country? What's great, or what was great in Krakow? And equally important, what can you look back now and say we weren't doing very well? What wasn't so great?
Thanks for having me back to start with. 2 things standing out still for me, and I think it's still valid in Krakow. Krakow is still very rich on talented, motivated, and highly qualified students from all the universities, meaning providing the whole industry an excellent recruitment base. Secondly, on top of that, is providing a very attractive balance between cost and quality, and I mean providing a very high quality to a reasonable low cost. What we have done maybe less good up to now is that I think we have been pretty proud what we have achieved so far. I think that's also a risk that we think that the next 10 years will be as successful as up to now without major efforts and many changes. The industry develops very fast, and it can also move away pretty fast if we don't follow. In fact, we should not follow, we should take the lead. The industry and the centers we should define where we would like to go, where we would like to be in 5 years, 10 years' time, what we should focus on. Quality, absolutely. We will never compete with the cheapest. We should not do it. Secondly, we need to leverage more on technology. We should optimize as much as we can on all the transactional activities, all the routine tasks. I fully agree with David that that is an opportunity, nothing else. If we don't do it, it's a threat. Thirdly and last, maybe we could even leverage more on our strongholds. What is Krakow unique for? I find it very difficult anywhere to find a spot that provides 20, 30 different languages. Use that more as a selling point, but maybe even be better in it. You can even use it more. I'm from Sweden. I know Scandinavian companies looking into Krakow, but I also know that there's not so many Swedish Scandinavian speakers here. So we can even be better in our strongholds.
Brilliant. Thank you. Vic, your last role and your new role, you had a global position. So you're, if I remember the places last time, you were at Krakow, Manila, Cleveland, and Bracknell. International Bracknell there. Lovely, lovely. Okay. Great for you then to look at those. You've been to all of them. You spent time. There's people. There's the buildings. Everything about our industry, the environment of all of those places you've been to, and then Krakow. Same question really, like to Nicholas. Vic, what's the good and the bad? What could you see where we're ahead, where we're behind? What share with us a little bit of that international.
Sure. So I think for me today's been really interesting, and I will answer that question in a minute. But first and foremost, 7 years ago, I think it was just us guys, Owen and Scott, and we were proud if we got 30 people in the Sheraton for a conference. So I think for Andrew and the team, really, really well done. Proud of our achievements over the years. In 2010, the challenge was with 16,000, those jobs are going to go to Manila or India, and it's local, next low-cost location, etc. I think we've got to dispel the myth that Krakow is a low-cost location. It's not. It hasn't been for a long time. It is the best location in the spectrum between quality and value. And that's what we've got to focus on. We talked about salaries. We were saying 10 years ago that salaries were high, and we're all battling over salaries. Who's going to come in? Who's going to be taking the talent next? The engagement stuff, the transformational things we need to do, keeping our people engaged, etc. From my perspective, having been privileged enough to have a global role, coming back to Krakow. I would say a couple of things. One is that we need to focus on the point that I think David Paul made this morning, be the hub for future excellence. We need to dispel the myth around salaries. We pay for quality, value, and I would say 12 months ago I was doing a piece of work where I was very much focused on Krakow isn't a place for growth. If I get asked a question today, I have a new role and I probably have a choice of where to put a centre in Poland, I would come to Krakow. I would absolutely come to Krakow and harness the fact that within my sector, the RPO, Krakow has now become a world player. It has 6 of the biggest RPO players in Krakow having their centre of excellence. and no other industry can even come near that. So I think we've got to be proud of what we have. We shouldn't apologise for the salaries. German has always been an issue. It's always been difficult, and we've just got to get on with focusing on the future. Those low-cost, low-value jobs, let the robots do it, and let's get on with going up that value chain. Like we said 10 years ago, let's focus on those team leaders. They are they're the ones that are going to be helping, motivating I guess you can break it down into two things. You have the vital many, which will mean that they're in that pyramid of the career structure within the BPO. The vital many, there will always be attrition. We've got to develop the skilled few, keep them, retain them, and motivate them.
Yep, brilliant. You're next in a minute, Darren, I'll tell you. John, I checked this actually. So originally I thought you may be, but now I have to say you are the longest serving general manager in CEE. Did you know that? Congratulations, John. So you're the longest serving. You opened the first. You ran the largest. And now you've opened the fastest growing. I don't know about CE, but definitely that I can remember ever being opened. So there's some facts for you. That's fantastic. And we just saw the lovely video from 1999, so you really have been here a long time. Tell us a little bit about the difference, right? Other than the computers, when you said state of the art. Tell us a little bit about what you can see, because you really have been, you've been doing this job for a long time, and you've, as a general manager, and you've seen the change. Tell us, again, the good change and the bad change. What's the stuff that's worrying you still, and what do you think is great and you're proud of in all of that?
Okay, so thank you, Romik. Actually, I still have that tie. The tie I was wearing in 1999, I actually saw it in my wardrobe last week, but that's beside the point. Yeah, I mean, for me, and this was something I remember discussing with Darren about more than 10 years ago, this market has always been deeper than we all believed. I remember the first time I was asked to find 5 Dutch speakers or 10 Dutch speakers, I thought, not a hope, and I ended up with having 40 or 50 of them, and probably Shell had just as many. So the market has always been deeper than we felt. So therefore, the resource pool has always been fantastic. We've been very fortunate with the university infrastructure that we have. Changes, the dynamic of the work, I think is much more intensive. I think activities are much more target-driven now than they would have been in the earlier days. I think business cases are sharper, and there's that perspective about driving improvement that maybe wasn't there so much at the beginning. Going back to Vic's point as well, Krakow's capability is developing as expertise centres. We've got great people. They want to get on, they want to develop, they want to do new things. There's a huge thirst for knowledge, and they get new experiences. Another thing I would say is probably one of the key dynamics over the years is you cannot take your workforce for granted, because the perspective of what the younger generation want is very different than what the baby boomers here might think they want. And I was even thinking this morning, maybe for future managers, we should maybe even skip a generation a little bit and have people more attuned with what the new entrants to the workforce are actually looking for. Negatives over the years, I don't think there's any real negatives. I think it's just change. There has been change, and you adapt to that. And if you're very successful, you'll anticipate the change a little bit before it's coming, and you'll be maybe more ready for it.
Darren, you've recently actually taken on a BPO role in Warsaw. So I think you did 15 years in Kraków. Is that right? 14 or 15 years here. Now you're in Warsaw. Same industry. Theoretically, all looks the same. Or how different is it? What can you see? Almost, is there big differences?
So this is a location question, I guess, between Warsaw and Kraków specifically, but Kraków and other locations in Poland and the region. having now worked in Warsaw and Krakow, I can say there's actually not so much of a difference. So we feel sometimes that we have a large challenge with recruiting people in Krakow, but the same is at least as true in Warsaw, which typically, as the capital city, has other hubs of activity and lots of other demands on the workforce related to headquarters, and of course the centres of media, political life, etc., etc. So we shouldn't feel as though we in Krakow have a particular issue in terms of being able to recruit, because it's difficult everywhere. One thing that I can say that I feel we don't potentially do as well here as is done in Warsaw, or is something that we could think that we could do better on, was indicated by, there was a gentleman asked a very perceptive question, I thought, during one of the HR sessions, and that was really about engaging with other people who could be potential members of our workforce, because I think that we do seem to find, typically we find that people who are coming through our recruitment processes look and feel the same. I don't think we have the same level of diversity that you see in the Warsaw. I don't mean diversity among nationalities, because obviously Krakow is quite good on that, but diversity in the types of backgrounds of people that you would typically see in a Warsaw, for example. And I think that there's potentially a large untapped population of people out there who could work in the kind of environment that we are now in, which is about being a flexible, dynamic knowledge worker, rather than being, as it has in the past, to a certain extent, being a typical office worker. And I think that move means that we need to look at different places that we can find people and try and match some of the cosmopolitan centres for their depth of reach into the marketplace for potential staff.
Do you think the Krakow market, as it matures, will start to sort of attract those type of people within the centres? I think it's, to your point, perhaps the nature of where we came from, and as we develop, we will start to be looking at a different type of workforce coming in.
Okay. Good. So I think the answer is that I think that we have to do something to attract them, and that is not that they will just naturally be drawn to us, because I think that they still think of us as an industry which is an industry of just office workers rather than potentially knowledge workers. Clearly, within our typical target universities, the IT universities and AGAC and the old Academy of Economy, which probably changed its name now, but we're very well known. The industry has an image, a market image, and that doesn't necessarily reach out to other parts of the potential workforce. Sorry, one small example was we were talking about Dutch speakers in the past being a really hard thing to get hold of, or something we thought would be very difficult. I had a similar example more recently, so maybe 18 months, 2 years ago now. It was required to go out and find veterinary surgeons who spoke English, and would be prepared to work in an office to do veterinary insurance claim assessment. And I thought that was going to be absolutely impossible. And we've actually found plenty of them. And these are people that, okay, they had those specific skills in this case, but they were typical of the kinds of people that we don't reach as an industry in our normal interactions.
Is that working? No. Time. So, sorry to rush us, but there's beer. What I wanted to get from all of you guys is actually, we're all members of Aspire in this room. That's why we're here. We're Aspire. And what Aspire is about, as a group, tackling problems and getting a solution as a group. That's what Aspire was created for, sharing, really. And I want to know what you guys, you've been in the industry a long, long time, and you've seen it all, you know, and you've seen it from 10,000 feet. Tell everyone in the room what you think we're not doing well enough as Aspire. Where should our focus be more? Where could we be? I mean, you've raised a couple of things, and I think they're brilliant. You know, looking for a talent pool outside of what everyone looks at. I think that's a brilliant one. That's something that Aspire could do on behalf of everyone. So instead of 100 of us doing it individually, maybe that's what Aspire should do and share that information back into the group. But I'm kind of thinking, what other things are there? Is there anything that you can see Aspire could focus in on a little bit better? Maybe something we've let pass by?
Yeah. One observation I'd probably make is about the development of leadership skills. In that a number of the centres grow quite quickly, and sometimes people advance to, let's say, positions of team leadership, but do we properly equip them to lead teams? And I think, you know, there's a wealth of experience within Aspire, coaching, guidance, mentoring, that we could maybe put a lot of experience back into the upcoming pools, because I just feel sometimes we can be a little bit light on that piece, and in particular, as the dynamic and the objectives of the younger parts of the workforce are different, how you equip your people to deal with them, I think is very, very important.
Coming back to my technology, it will be a massive change the next 5, 10 years, whatever, it probably goes faster. I was shopping around by myself, an OCR system maybe for 6, 7 years ago, went pretty well, but now it's 80, 100 companies. I think it's more effective if Aspire take a leading role and somehow guide or recommend or invite providers to show best case demos instead of each of us is doing it.
So it's a similar point, I think, but I come from a slightly different direction. And that is that Aspire has an awful lot of really good associate members. And I think that mobilising, I think the dynamic for me, we could change somehow. We need to mobilise the talent and the skills that are in the associate members, so that they can actually feel that it's worthwhile making an investment, investigating both the things that Nicholas and I, and all the ideas that we may come up with. Because I think at the moment it can be quite a painful thing for associate members, because they don't get maybe the input from the full members on exactly what the members are after and where should they invest their time, and we need to make that work better, so that there's real potential for them to make investment, for the centres to engage with them, and for the associate members to see the return that they would be able to make if they make the right kinds of investigations.
I think for me, with Aspire, there's always a natural tendency to look at new investors coming in and focusing on them, and I think we've got to make sure we keep the focus and help the ones that are existing here to grow here, and not to be thinking about another city in Poland or elsewhere, and thinking how can we help them grow their centres within, grow their workforce, grow the talent within the Krakow region.
All good points. Thank you. Thank you.
Right, but all of those points were not to say that Andrew and the team aren't doing an absolutely amazing job, because they are.
I think to that point is that Aspire is all of us, and I think that sometimes we forget it's Andrew and his team. It's the centre heads, it's the members. We've all got to contribute to continue for Krakow to be number one.
I guess the best thing is to do is open the floor up to some questions. I mean, One of these guys will definitely know the answer. I've got no doubt at all. Absolutely certain. I'll buy anyone a beer if you can ask a question that they can't answer. Any questions? There we go. Young lady there at the front. You can have a glass of wine, yes. Romek Lubaczewski.
How's the next generation coming up? Are they biting at your heels? The Polish, sorry?
We're all passed it on apart from John.
Yeah. So I mean, how do you see the growth of the local leadership talent?
It's there. I'm already replaced by a local. And when I arrived in 2007, we was maybe 6 or 7 expats, and after 3 years, I was alone, and now I'm out and replaced by a local. So you have plenty of them.
My local leader was better than me, so yeah, exactly. So no, absolutely, the local leadership is key. But bringing in talent from abroad, not just Brits, is also we shouldn't be ashamed of that either.
I think that in my experience here, in terms of leadership teams, I've only ever had one expatriate on a team with me, maybe 2. Yeah, and actually. There's one colleague up there today with me today, so maybe 3 and 15 years plus. So no, there is a good pool, but as I said earlier, we also need to foster those leadership skills and give people opportunities. I think also a lot of the centres have international wings, or rather they are wings of international organisations. I think the more assignments and people getting an opportunity to go to other markets, other territories, other geographies, and get a bit of different experience and get a different perspective and be able to bring it back to Krakow. Derek, remember Derek? Yeah, I don't know if anybody knows Derek Seuss, but Derek was with Cap. I knew him in Warsaw when I was in EY, and he came to Cap Gemini, and he went to China, and he went to China for about 3-4 years. Running operations centres there, and he came back to Poland with a completely different perspective. So I would encourage anybody in international organisations to, number one, for the Polish talent, not to be afraid to go and try a different environment, and also for the organisations to actually encourage the talent to move out for a while.
Questions? Young man at the back.
Hi, thanks for referring to my question earlier. And the recent elections prove that the young people of Poland are a little afraid of the future. And I teach at a university, and I talk to a lot of my students, and they are deeply worried about the future of Poland. Now, what are you going to do to? I mean, my question is what can I tell my students, saying that, okay, everything's going to be fine and good people are working on it?
I'll give the microphone to John.
What are you going to do about it?
Young John. Yeah. That's the limit of questions from you. No more from you. I was going to end with this, but I can't now because I have to answer your question, which is a very good one. I'm on 6 months sabbatical, so I've had 5 months of no work, and it's been lovely, absolutely lovely. This is my first kind of day of work, and I'm not working, I'm having fun with friends. And the one thing that happened on my holiday that made me think of work, I was in an environment where someone told me, Krakow's really heated, it's impossible to find people. And I've been listening to that for 18 years. When we first opened, I heard that. When we hired our first 50 people, someone said, the market's going to be dead. I've heard that shit for 20 years, and I still hear the same story. And I spent some time thinking about this, and I've concluded myself, and I may be wrong, which my wife will tell you happens a lot. And my conclusion is this. When I compare Krakow to anywhere, and I mean anywhere else, in CEE or around the world, Krakow is in a very unique situation. Is the only industry hiring people is ours, okay? You go to Warsaw, every industry is hiring. The big four hire about 1,000 people a year in Warsaw, okay? In Krakow, they hire probably 50 or 20 or something. No one is really hiring here. There's no other big industry growing, developing. Most are getting smaller, okay? And And so then I think of the thousands and thousands of young people coming out looking for a job, and we are their answer. And it's quite sad in one way, but it's true. You know, if we don't hire them, there's not a lot of other jobs going. And I can remember when we first hired John, people thought BPO was a really horrible place to go, right? It was considered to be a crap job, you know, work to death. You don't have to think, you just type all day. And you cannot be further from the truth what we do now in these centres. They are full with extremely bright people with a great career potential, and many of them have great careers and have been in the industry 15, 18, 20 years and are very senior. And I think it's a great job in lovely buildings. The buildings most of you guys are in much nicer than the one I work in. It is a great industry, and we hire a lot of people. And I think we as an industry have to just keep watching and making sure that we keep Kraków fresh. I think what the guy said is dead on. We've got to stop being seen as low cost. We're not. We're high value. Value comes from the difference between quality and cost, one divided by the other. And we already are. We're actually famous for this. I think we need to keep saying that. And we need the guys coming through looking for jobs to understand what we do better. And I think this is a job for Aspire as well. It's the one thing I think we don't do very well, is get the guys at university to understand what we really do, what being employed in our industry is like, and that is great work. Would anyone like to add? There's someone in the back there, sorry.
Hi. We're going back to you were saying earlier about talent development and within Aspire. Do you think it would be possible for people to exchange positions on short-term assignments? So if you had, say, you know, in my area, order to cash, you could go for 1 month to another company and people could swap positions so they could see that what they developed in one company actually is viable in others, and then they could come back. I know there's complexities behind that, but in principle, rather than leaving a company, they could be like a, you know, sort of a job sharing.
Can I take that? I wouldn't do it. I think it's a novel idea, and I never thought of it before, but it doesn't. I wouldn't do it, because I think where we have a lack of talent development is not about going from AP to AR, or from going, I was going to say some IT thing, but I don't know anything about IT, programming to project management or something. I don't think moving to another company and sitting there and experiencing their culture and environment is what a lot of people need. I think where there's the gap, which John mentioned, is our skill in actually developing young people who have been with us for 5, 6 years to actually get them to become managers. And that difference of running a team of 10 to think as a manager. And that training is very hard. In a lot of the companies we work for, they have that set up in their environment, but it's not good for BPO and shared services. It's not structured for what we do, where we have 300 young people aged 25 to 28. They have it structured where the age group is from 60 down to 22, and it's a development path for managers, and, you know, every 50th person's on it. Well, that doesn't work for us. So I think what we need to do is develop a learning and training and development program for our industry, because I think we're big enough and we should be doing it. And I think that's what you were saying, John. Is that fair?
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
I also think that 1 month is far too short and it's not manageable for the companies. On the other side, Aspire can provide a tremendous knowledge base with the 800 companies. Why I say 800 is that for 3 years ago it was roughly 80, so I lost the counting. You can share best practices within the organization. At that time we had many work groups sharing different expertise areas, and there I think it could fit in.
Yeah, I was going to mention the work groups as well. I think that's worth, you know, the centre heads are here re-energising their process experts, and the process experts giving their centre heads a bit of a kick in to get those re-energised.
Okay, guys, thank you very much. Next year, I'll be able to say we've been 67 years in the industry, if we get invited back. Thank you very much indeed. We were going to be around drinking beer. I'm pretty certain I know the boys. So if you've got any more questions, please feel free to nab us. And if you bring a beer, I'll answer any question you have.